e desta forma, já que estamos também a gravar e estamos por isto no YouTube, fica assim para a prosperidade. Okay, so without further ado, let's start. So hi everyone, thank you so much for having me, and welcome to a presentation that it's called A Letter to My Past Self, a career perspective, in the sense that what inspired me to give this talk was what I really would love to see if I were you, the ones that are currently in this audience. So we are talking about recent grads, we are talking about people that are still studying and kind of looking for their first professional experience. And so my expectation or belief is that after seeing this presentation, you will be much better well-informed and prepared to understand the road ahead of you. So this is what pretty much I would love to see in a presentation if I were your age or be in your situation. So let's start with this letter. So I was already brilliantly presented by João. So my name is Pedro Torres, or Pedro Torres. This is how I present myself in English, which is quite funny because it doesn't sound not that much good. So I'm a director of software engineering at Salsify. So Salsify is pretty much a US company based in Boston. So pretty much in the East Coast of the United States, has a very interesting office in Lisbon. And pretty much what we do is that we help brands win on the digital shelf. Looking to my personal career, I have more than 12 years of experience running engineering teams. Okay, so I think that looking back, I've already worked with more than 100 engineers throughout my career, which is something that obviously I really value a lot. And if I would kind of put my pitch line, I would probably say that I love to help startups or scale-ups and even blue chip companies to succeed. And that's pretty much my value proposition as an individual and professional. Just for you to have a little bit of context on what I'm going to say and kind of the background that I have for the things that I'm going to talk about. Before being at Salsify, I've worked at TalkTest for several years, way before being considered a unicorn. I worked at So Nice, so it's pretty much the biggest Portuguese retailer. I worked at Blip, so we know that it's pretty much the Portuguese branch of a famous and big online betting company in the UK. I worked at Farfetch too, so pretty much it already has like 2 unicorns on my list. So I think that when I have the third, I will call myself the unicorn raiser or something like that, but I'm still waiting for the third one to grab that punchline. I worked abroad in London, in UK for Sky. And before that, I worked at Otim, so now it's Nosh, and a couple of consultancy companies like Indra and Accenture. And so with kind of this sort of background, I hope that it will make sense for you what I'm going to say next. So let's jump into the letter. Let's try to understand what I would like to write to my past self, so that when I was like 20, 21, 22, I would love to know that I didn't know back then. Well, first of all, and congrats to all of you. I think that maybe without you noticing, you already started your professional career. And I'm saying this because when you choose the right college for you to study, so college, university, in this case, FEUP, you already did a very smart choice. Although you probably don't realize it because you just have classes and teachers and maybe some parties too. You already started your professional career, and pretty much because when you decide to go for the right university, all the doors at the very beginning of your career will be much more open, and it will be much easier for you to land your first job. And I'm telling you this because, for instance, back in the day when I studied, I lost some job opportunities because of the college that I was coming from. So maybe this is not something as usual today, but it's actually a fact. Like, we have several companies, and yes, I think that we can say even today, we have several companies that because of the college that you're coming from, you can be considered for a job or not. So this to me definitely is like the first smart step. And so all of you that are already here in this presentation, you already started your professional career, maybe without even noticing, okay? Another thing that is also very important, obviously, is the grades that you end your degree. You would be surprised at how many companies, and I'm talking about, the companies that probably you wish to work for, they will value a lot your degree that you're going to conclude your studies, but also very important, how many years it took you to conclude your studies. And again, you might not see this, but this is really important. Grades, how long does it take? Because otherwise people will just ask you on the hiring interview, say, oh, so why it took you like 7 years to finish your college degree? And you will need to have like a good explanation, and it's not, it's not valid to say, oh, I partied a lot. You won't impress anyone with that for sure. So please be mindful about that. Then, after making the right choice, then deciding where you want to start working. And this again is something that might be not like super important at first sight, but it really, really is, If I would like to put this in a very, very simple way, I would say that at the end of the day, the companies that you will work for can be divided between two big groups. So we are going to talk about companies that develop a product. So think Talkdesk, Farfetch, think Google's, think Facebook. So a company that is pretty much creating and maintaining one product or maybe several products, but pretty much, it's like a product that can be used. Obviously, Salsify too is one here in a brilliant example. Or services / consultancy. So I'm talking about Accenture, I'm talking about Indra, I'm talking about KPMG, PricewaterhouseCoopers, you name it, like those big consultancy companies that are in the industry. And here you really need also to understand that I bias to one of those groups, okay? I strongly advise people, and trying to be as political correct here as possible, to go for a product company. I think that in terms of trajectory, in terms of growth, I think that definitely if I would go back in time, that would be my beginning for sure. And yes, and if you actually go for something like that, or even if it is services and consultancy, but mainly on a product company, you need then to decide, do I want to start in a startup, let's say a small company, maybe a scale-up, which usually goes beyond 100 people working there, maybe a blue chip company, so let's say Google or Facebook, okay? It really depends on what motivates you the most. Is it, to be in a smaller company, maybe having a bigger impact? Is working in a huge company and being just one, but maybe your product is being used by millions? It really depends. You don't have a right answer here. One thing that is really, really important, and again, this is just me advising my past self, is don't be too concerned about the salary. Yes, we all need a salary. Absolutely, a salary usually tends to be a direct correlation with success, and that's why we love it to be so high. But remember that in the very beginning, in your first years of your career, it's much more about what you can learn and what you can grow than how much you're going to be paid for. Because I'd rather go for a company that pays a little bit less. I'm not talking about working for free or just getting a lousy salary. I'm saying getting a little less, but in a company that I see that I can learn a lot, so I'm kind of investing on myself, then going to a company that probably is going to pay me more, but it's not going to teach me a lot of stuff, and sooner or later, I will be out of resources and I won't learn as much as other people that will compete with me on the job market. Then obviously, another thing that is really important for you is to decide, do I want to become a specialist or do I want to become a generalist? And here there is no right or wrong. So a specialist is someone that is really, really good at a craft in particular. So let's say, for instance, think about backend. So I want to be backend. So this pretty much means I'm a specialist in backend, but I can go even further. So I can actually say, I want to be a Java backender. So this is my thing. I really want to be good at Java and I just want to work on backend. And this is being a specialist, okay? Or you can be a little bit more generalist and say, hey, I want to be a full stack developer. Okay, so I would like to work on the back end. I would also would like to work on front end. So I would like kind of to be well-rounded and be a little bit more kind of flexible, so to speak. My advice here is I would definitely go for what we usually call a T-shaped skill, being being quite a specialist in a given craft. So let's say backend. So I love backend. But besides backend, I can also do some data stores, or I can also touch a little bit on the front end. So I'm not pretty much kind of exclusive doing something. And this obviously opens you a little bit more doors than just being really laser focused on a speciality. Also very important, or at least my advice, don't lock yourself on the technology. Remember that, yes, Java has been here for a long time, but a lot of coding languages appeared and died in a couple of years, in very few years, maybe like 1, 2, 3 years, and they are simply gone because the adoption just dropped. So, I'd rather be focusing on being very good solving a problem, let's say distributed systems, than really knowing very well a specific language. Because if I really know how to solve distributed system problems, I will be really good regardless of being Elixir, Java, if it is Golang. That will be pretty much just a tool to solve a problem that I know how to solve. So focus more on solving problems than on learning a very specific technology. That would be my advice. And so let's say, okay, you now have a job, you thought very carefully about this, but when should you move? Okay, so you've just got your first job, you've been in a company, I don't know, like a week, a month, 1 year, 10 years. When should you move? When is like the right time for me to start kind of looking to a greener field? I would say that definitely in a nutshell, it's when you stop learning, okay, or feeling challenged. So if all days look the same, if you don't see that you are growing into what you want to become, that is a very strong sign that you should probably move into a different company. Obviously, with this comes a very strong responsibility. Like, should I move every year because I stopped feeling challenged? No, like move thoughtfully, like, stay for a while, grow your products, grow your projects, create your network of professionals and with your peers and make friends. And again, when you stop having fun, then move. But don't just move every 6 months because that doesn't look good on a CV. And it will tell very, very much or very little about your commitment. So you really need kind of to balance things out. Things that definitely I would like kind of to warn you about is working freelance is quite tricky, because usually freelance means that I know this, I'm going to work for a lot of companies knowing this, but no companies will invest in me to learn more. So, or I actually invest on myself, or freelancing will very soon dry you out. And also very interesting, like, don't be afraid to embrace remote. Well, obviously today we are all stuck at home because of COVID, but before that, see other possibilities. Yes, being at the office is great, but remote work is also very powerful. Maybe moving abroad, like I did, it's an amazing experience, and definitely something that I advise everyone to experiment, to meet a different country, city, culture, and so on. And my last advice here for sure is beware of LinkedIn. So LinkedIn is a very interesting and powerful social network, but I'm risking to say that a competent software engineer gets at least one invitation per week to change jobs. And we really need to have that structure, that kind of that mindset of knowing that when we have a commitment, we are there to deliver and to fulfill that commitment. And then when we think that our mission is done, when we stop learning, we move. Otherwise, we'll always be constantly harassed on LinkedIn to move jobs, regardless of just arriving 1 week or 1 month to the current job that you have. So please be respectful of that and never forget about your values and ethics. Then also a strong advice is create your online footprint. How can I know João Bordalo? How can I know every one of you? Kind of make sure that you live this life, working life. It doesn't mean that you need to die, but this working life with a strong footprint. Nothing will give me more sense of accomplishment and pride of looking back, let's say in 10 years from now, and I can actually see this presentation. I can see what I've built on LinkedIn, on my blog, on the contributions, the people that I helped along the way. This is something that is really, really powerful. So definitely contribute to open source projects, kind of look after, your Twitter in a professional way, your GitHub, give presentations, contributions, everything. Because remember, when you're starting to receive from the community, So let's say, a good job, as a salary, the opportunities. Also think about giving back. How can you make sure that what you're getting, you're also giving back? Because that's really important, and it's one of the things that makes this industry of software engineering so great. Then, and I already spoke about this, really invest in yourself. Don't wait, for a company to pay you that training that you want to do, or don't wait for a company to pay you to go to a conference. Again, here during COVID, that doesn't make sense, but trust me, you will have opportunities to go to a lot of conferences in very different countries or cities. Don't wait for a company to decide what you need to learn. You are also a professional. You also need to know what you want to grow and where you want to go. And if by some reason you need to pay a course in Coursera, or you need to go to London to learn something for a week, or go to this conference in San Francisco, obviously I know it's pricey, but if you think that is important for you and it might change your career, just do it. Don't think about waiting for someone to pay that stuff for you. Again, create online content, invest in your personal brand, in your image, have a pet project. No one will get very far from seeing Netflix every single night and not perfecting their crafts. Okay, even today, with 41 years, I study during the night. Okay, I prepare for these sort of presentations. I read new stuff. Remember, we always need to stay relevant in this industry, and this industry is constantly changing. So trust me, what you're learning today, in a couple of years, it won't be that meaningful. So you really need to make sure that you're always keeping up with the recent changes and how you can actually stay relevant and on the top of your game. Read books, read tons of books, read blogs, try to understand and learn new things. That's how you're going to be successful. That's pretty much kind of the way that I would say. Oh, and by the way, and if you're actually understanding this presentation, English is so much important for you to be successful. Because trust me, if you have the ambition to work for Salsify or TalkDesk or Google and Facebooks of this life, if you don't speak English, you won't ever be considered. So we really need to find and to be good at this universal language that this industry adopted, that is English. Then obviously, you start also to think that, well, there needs something that needs to exist beyond coding. Okay, so today you're 21, you're 22, maybe 20, you love to code. Code is pretty much like amazing, and sometimes you wake up at the middle of the night because you just remember how to solve a problem and you run to your computer and start coding at 2, 3, 4 a.m. Okay, that happens to pretty much everyone. But you really need to understand that after some years, maybe coding, it's not that much appealing. Maybe you want different things. And so you really need to understand that there is more life beyond coding. So you have Agile and Scrum and ways of producing software and crafting a process, just like João mentioned on the beginning of this presentation. You have thinking about architecture of systems, for instance, about being a manager of people that are software engineers, being a mentor, being a coach, looking much more for the strategy and less for the lines of code. So what I'm trying to say here in a nutshell is that don't be afraid if by some reason you stop loving coding, because we can do much more things inside the industry of software engineering besides coding. And for instance, in my case, Agile just changed my career completely in 2010. So watch out for what can actually change your career when the time comes. Also very important, and again, not judging anyone or anything, but just food for thought. Never forget your principles and values and what it actually means to live by them. And so what I'm saying here is, besides, choosing the right company to work for, kind of making the right relationships, creating the footprint, how comfortable are you, for instance, in working in a product that you wouldn't be proud that your family use? So let's give an example here, for instance, betting, gambling online. So let's say that we are creating some stuff for people to bet online. How proud of you would be you of participating in that product? How happy would you be, sorry, if your parents would use your product? Or maybe you would say, no, I'm actually creating this product, but I would actually prefer if my family stays away. So my question here for you is, if that's the case, then should you actually be working for that company? or should you be working for a company where actually your product is something that you are proud of and you would love for everyone to use it? Because this actually means a lot. Like, I'm not challenging here how you can actually learn for working in a company where you can place a bet, where you can actually put a personalized advertisement. But, today, and we are talking about, 2020, you see so many things now of people being manipulated online, people losing, their personal wealth because they are just gambling. And again, it doesn't need to be online. You can go on an offline casino and bet all your money and lose. But what I'm trying to say here is make sure that when you go for a company, you actually understand the impact that you're going to have in this world, and you're not going to be ashamed of it. Again, we all have our different thresholds and principles and values, but definitely this is something for you to think of when you're deciding where you want to work for or not. And obviously also never forget that diversity and inclusion is really, really important. So let's make sure that we know and we respect everyone that is working in this industry, regardless of their choices and options. Also, obviously very important is like, are you willing to work for, bossy boss, what you usually call a brilliant jerk, or even an asshole? Sorry for saying this. Maybe you shouldn't work with people like that. Maybe you should think twice before working in a toxic culture. So again, never forget your principles and values and live by them, definitely on the workplace, but also obviously in your life. And remember, there are places where things are rough. There are places where people burn out, and it should not be okay for you to say, oh, but that didn't happen to me. So we really need to be thoughtful and be a little bit also very demanding with the company that we work for and the conditions that they give us back. Well, and pretty much almost at the end, like, one of the best of advice that I can give to you is like, be successful, work for that, You know that to be successful, you really need to be lucky. But luck is something that you work towards, okay? So luck is pretty much when opportunity and competence meet, and that's being lucky, that's luck. And so for us to be successful, we need luck, but we need to work for that luck. So I think that taking consideration that we are all starting to work at 20-something, and we'll probably finish working at 60-something, well, maybe 70. By the way, this is evolving. We really need to make sure that we are successful in what we are doing and we are having fun. So going to work should not be should not be painful, should not be boring. It should be fun. It should be inspiring. And also, obviously, never forget helping others along the way. Remember who helped you, who coached you, who mentored you, who inspired you, and do the same with the following people that would love also to get that from you. So remember that it's no fun to be the only person successful around you. So make sure that, yes, you're successful, but you also look after other people and you help them along the way, because that's the way that this makes sense, at least in my opinion. Last but not least, and this is my last thought before I close my presentation, and this, I know today might be just a little bit silly for you, but now at my stage, it's really, really important. It's, never forget where you come from. So don't forget that we are all people. We are pretty much blessed for working in this industry, or start working in this industry where we have so many perks, so many benefits, such a good salary compared with other industries, so many opportunities to visit other countries, to get different exposure, to create something that can be used by millions, when we have so many professions that people simply can't have that sort of possibility. So make sure that we actually stop every now and then to think how lucky we are of achieving so much, and that this industry is great. But this industry will only stay great if we actually make it and work towards continue to be great. Remember that it's much easier to make something good than actually to make sure that it stays good, because that gives much more effort. And it probably won't be that much me, although I'm here to help for sure, but it's definitely going to be all of you that are here listening to me. So yes, so this is pretty much the presentation and the letter that I would love to send to myself when I was 20-something. I really hope that you enjoyed this presentation, and let me know if you have any questions. I'm more than happy to answer for you. Thank you.
Obrigado, Pedro. Mais uma vez, como já tive o privilégio, é sempre bom voltar a ouvir-te, principalmente com questões extremamente importantes, principalmente para estes jovens, que estão ainda na faculdade e às vezes não sabem bem que direção seguir. Acho que isto é mesmo muito insightful, e extremamente crucial para eles começarem a mentalizar e pensar no que realmente querem. Acredito que se calhar na cabeça deles passa um bocado um sentimento de isto se calhar não é assim tão importante, mas passa em toda a gente que passa, que passou por isto, mas realmente o problema é mesmo encarar esta realidade, ou porque temos medo de sair da zona de conforto ou não, por isso, mais uma vez, muito obrigado por esta mensagem que é extremamente
Nada,
crucial.
foi um prazer.
Infelizmente, não temos tempo para questões de que eu andei neste momento, correr agora em tempo real, digamos assim. Portanto, a qualquer um dos participantes, se tiver alguma questão, pedia para enviar ou para mim pessoalmente por este chat, ou então nas perguntas e respostas, ou então de alguém da equipa, e se o Pedro não se importar, faremos chegar e depois publicamos devidamente para as
Não,
pessoas.
claro que sim, inclusivamente, João, se me permite, até convido toda a gente que está a assistir a esta apresentação, podem me contactar via LinkedIn. Acho que se vocês ainda não têm LinkedIn, quem está a assistir, por favor, criem um, porque é importante para vocês começarem a ter a visibilidade e criar esse footprint. Adicionem-me, podem falar comigo, coloquem-me questões, estou perfeitamente aberto para vos ajudar.
Muito obrigado, Pedro, e muito obrigado por efetivamente ensinares-me o que é a já. E portanto, diria que vamos por
Beleza.
aí e é sempre um prazer ter cá.
Ok,
Um
muito
abraço.
obrigado então a todos. Um abraço, adeus.